Hello, I am Dr. Rajshree Chatterjee, Associate Professor, Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Jagannath University, Jaipur.
Hello everyone. Today I am going to discuss broadcasting codes for television and radio. These codes are to be discussed in two parts, for television and secondly for radio. So let's start for television. Section 1 are the fundamental principles on which these television codes have been designed. The very first one is professional electronic journalists should accept and understand that they operate as trustees of public and should therefore make it their mission to seek the truth and to report it fairly with integrity and independence. Professional journalists should stand fully accountable for their actions. The purpose of this code is to document the broad paradigms accepted by the members of the NBA News Broadcasters Association as practice and procedures that would help journalists of electronic media to adhere to the highest possible standards of public service and integrity. News channels recognize that they have a special responsibility in the matter of adhering to high standard of journalism, since they have the most potent influence on public opinion. The broad principles on which the news channel should function are therefore as stated hereinafter. Broadcasters shall in particular ensure that they do not select news for the purpose of either promoting or hindering either side of any controversial public issue. News channels not be selected or designed to promote any particular belief, opinion, or desires of any interest groups. The fundamental purpose of dissemination of news in a democracy is to educate and inform the people of the happenings in the country so that the people of the country understand significant events and form their own conclusions. Broadcasters shall ensure a full and fair presentation of news, as the same is the fundamental responsibility of each news channel. Realizing the importance of presenting all points of view in a democracy, the broadcaster should therefore take responsibility in ensuring that controversial subjects are fairly presented, with time being allotted fairly to each point of view. Besides, the selection of items of news shall also be governed by public interest and importance based on the significance of these items of news in a democracy. Let's start with the principles of self-regulation. The News Broadcasters Association have established commonly accepted content guidelines as a way of practicing self-regulation. The purpose is to define editorial principles which are consistent with the tenets of the freedom of speech articulated in the Constitution of India. The regulatory framework, common sensibilities of television viewers. The purpose of these principles of self-regulation is to serve as an affirmative declaration of understanding of and compliance with the basic values and objectives that news channel enshrine. It is to ensure that these principles are observed in spirit and not in just letter. The purpose of putting together the principles of self-regulation is to avoid compromising the genre of television news by broadcasting content that is malicious, biased, regressive, knowingly inaccurate, hurtful, misleading, or aimed at willfully concealing a conflict of interest. The purpose of these principles of self-regulation is to empower the profession of television journalism by an abiding set of values, which will stand the test of time, and ensure the balanced and comprehensive journalism flourishes to strengthen India's democracy. Detailed below are some of the areas where the broadcasters seek to self-regulate. The very first one is impartiality and objectivity in reporting. Accuracy is the heart of the news channel business. Viewers of 24 hours news channel expect speed, but it is the responsibility of the television news channels to keep accuracy and balance as precedence over speed. If despite these are errors, channels should be transparent about them. Error must be corrected promptly and clearly, whether in the news of pictures, a news report, a caption, a graphic, or a script. Channel should not strive not to broadcast anything which is obviously defamatory or libelous. Truth will be a defense in all the cases where a larger public interest is involved. And even these cases, equal opportunity will be provided for individuals involved to present their point of view. This also applies in cases where television channels report to those holding public office. Though, by virtue of doing so, no person can claim immunity from scrutiny from or criticism by news channels. The second point is ensuring neutrality. Television news channel must provide for neutrality by offering equality for all affected parties, players and actors in any dispute or conflict to present their point of view. Though neutrality does not always come down to giving equal space to all sides, news channels shall strive to give main viewpoints of the main parties. News channels must strive to ensure that allegations are not portrayed as facts and charges are not conveyed as an act of guilt. The third point is reporting on crime and safeguard to ensure crime and violence are not glorified. Television news channel has greater reach and more immediate impact than other forms of media, and this makes it all the more necessary that channels exercise restraint to ensure that any report or visual broadcast do not induce, glorify, incite, or positively depict violence and its perpetrators, regardless of ideology or context. Specific care must be taken not to broadcast visuals that can be prejudicial or inflammatory. Depiction of violence or intimidation against women and children. As an elaboration of point 3, news channel will ensure that no woman or juvenile who is a victim of sexual violence, aggression, trauma, or has been a witness to the same is shown on television without due effort taken to conceal the identity. In reporting all cases of sexual assault or instances where the personal character or privacy of a woman are concerned, their names, pictures, and other details will not be broadcast or divulged. Similarly, the identity of victim of child abuse and juvenile delinquents will not be revealed, and their picture will be morphed to conceal their identity. Next point is sex and nudity. News channels will ensure that they do not show, without morphing, nudity of male or female form. Channels will also not show explicit images of sexual activity or sexual perversions or acts of sexual violence like rape and or molestation, or show pornography or the use of sexually suggestive language. Next is privacy. As a rule, channel must not intrude on private lives or personal affairs of individuals unless there is a clearly established larger and identifiable public interest for such a broadcast. The underlying principle that news channels abide by is that the intrusion of private spaces, records, transcripts, telephone conversations, and any other material will not be for salacious interest, but only when warranted in the public interest. As a qualifier, however, channels are not expected to be moralistic or prudish, and this self-regulation is aimed not at moral policing, but rather at ensuring that overtly regressive and explicit acts and visuals do not slip into broadcast. However, it is also understood that the pursuit of the truth and the news is not possible through the predetermined principles of prior permission. Hence, doorstepping individuals or authorities for the purpose of news gathering may be used in the large purpose of public interest. Further, in the case of minors, in any broadcast that intrudes on their privacy, the channel should attempt, where possible, to seek the consent of the parent or legal guardian. However, the defense of the premise of privacy cannot be misconducted as the denial of access, and there applies to all individuals, including those in the public eye and public personalities. It does, however, apply in its entirety, as per the provisions mentioned above, to their children and kin who are minors. Next point is endangering national security. In the use of terminology or maps that represent India and Indian strategic interest, all news channels will use specific terminology and maps mandated by law and Indian government rules. News channels will also refrain from allowing broadcasts that encourage secessionist groups and interests, or reveal information that endangers lives and national security. However, it is in the public interest to broadcast instances of breach of national security and loopholes in national security, and reporting these cannot be confused with endangering national security. The next point is refraining from advocating or encouraging superstition or and occultism. News channels will not broadcast any material that glorifies superstition or occultism in any manner. In broadcasting any news about such genre, news channels will also issue public disclaimers to ensure that viewers are not misled into believing or emulating such beliefs and activity. Therefore, news channels will not broadcast as facts myths about supernatural acts, apparitions and ghosts, personal or social deviations or deviant behavior, and recreation of the same. Wherever references are made to such cases, news channels will issue on-air riders, disclaimers, warnings to ensure that such beliefs or events are not passed off as facts, since they can hurt rational sensibilities. Next point is sting operation. As a guiding principle, sting and undercover operations should be a last resort of news channel in an attempt to give the viewer comprehensive coverage of any news stories. News channel will not allow sex and sleaze as a means to carry out sting operations. The use of narcotics, psychotropic substances as an act of violence, intimidation, or discrimination as a justifiable means in the recording of any such sting operation. Sting operations will also abide by the principles of self-regulation mentioned above, and news channel will ensure that they will be guided as mentioned above by an identifiable larger public interest. News channel will also a ground rule ensure that sting operations are carried out only as a tool for getting conclusive evidence for wrongdoing or criminality, and that there is also no deliberate alterations of visuals or editing or interposing done with the raw footage in a way that it also alters or misrepresents the truth or presents only a portion of the truth. Next is corriendum. All news channels will keeping with the principle of due accuracy and impartiality, ensure that significant mistakes made in the course of any broadcast is acknowledged and corrected on air immediately. Corrections should also be scheduled in such a way that they attract enough viewer attention and are not concealed. This, like the other principle, must be observed in spirit and not just in letter, to avoid any compromise to the reputation of the news broadcasting industry in India. The last point is viewers' feedback. All news channel will on be their website create provision to receive consumer feedback. Further, any specific viewer complaints will be responded to. In the event any news channels get a specific complaint, if found to be true, it will admit to the same on air and will respond in fullness and fairness to the viewer. In the event a viewer body perceives prejudice by any. So here in this topic we have discussed the fundamentals of the principles of making these code of conduct for television. We have also discussed the principles of self-regulation, and apart from that we have discussed 11 major points to understand the codes that have been made for regulating news channels in India. Thank you.